Good morning. It is another day of working in the shop, and today we are working on Sweet Caroline. We could get it completely stripped down. It's just too hot outside. Now it doesn't roll, so we can't get the spud truck back in until we make this a roller. My goal today is to make this car a roller.
When Matt first began taking calls for off-road recoveries around 2009, the odds were not in his favor. He did not have the powerful rigs or long cables that later made his work look smooth and professional. Instead, he had to drag cable extensions through thick sand, pulling them by hand, then walking back to fetch more. Again and again. What should have been short jobs turned into long battles, testing the patience of his team and the strength of his machines. Every recovery felt like a marathon with sweat, exhaustion, and endless trial and error. The desert itself was unforgiving. In places like Sand Hollow, where the sun baked the ground and the sand swallowed vehicles whole, pulling out a stuck car was never easy. Clients often faced huge bills, sometimes several hundred or even over $1,000. Yet, despite the high charges, Matt himself did not always come out ahead. The costs of fuel, equipment wear, and the risk of damaging his rigs often outweighed what he earned. Many times he gave discounts to help stranded drivers, but this generosity left him struggling to balance his books. It was a constant fight between wanting to help and needing to survive. On more than one occasion, the rescuer himself became the one in need of saving. Matt's vehicles would get stuck in deep sand or mud, forcing him to perform self-rescues that were as exhausting as the original jobs. In the process, rigs broke, ropes snapped, and parts wore out faster than he could replace them. Building and modifying vehicles like his famous Banana or the Morvere was costly, requiring endless trial and error. Each adjustment demanded money, time, and persistence. And every mistake cut deep into his budget. But the struggle was not only in the field. Behind the scenes, Matt faced another mountain to climb, learning how to share his adventures with the world. Technology was not his strength, and making videos seemed almost impossible. At first, he stumbled through editing software, fought with lost footage, and groaned when audio refused to cooperate. Uploading took forever, and managing editors was a challenge of its own. Every clip that finally made it online represented countless hours of frustration. Yet, he knew that telling these stories was the key to keeping his mission alive. As his name grew and the channel took off, new challenges replaced the old ones. Success brought scale and scale brought pressure. More vehicles meant more maintenance. More staff meant more responsibility. Travel, gear, fuel, and repairs piled higher with each passing month. Balancing the costs of real off-road recoveries with the demands of producing content for a growing audience was like walking a tightrope. One wrong step could send everything crashing down. Money was another constant headache. Payment disputes with insurance companies, especially delays or underpayments, pushed him into difficult corners. In some cases, large recoveries like trucks or RVs left him with far less compensation than the effort required. Losing money on tough jobs became a familiar pain. Each time it happened, the temptation to find new ways of bringing in revenue grew stronger, adding more weight to his shoulders. Then came the pressure of Public eyes. Every recovery was filmed. Every move was on display. Viewers saw it all. The smart calls, the mistakes, the near misses. Criticism poured in. Whenever things looked sloppy or dangerous. Fans loved the spectacle, but the very same need for dramatic footage sometimes pushed Matt to take greater risks. The chase for engagement clashed with the need for safety and ethics, forcing him to make hard decisions. What kept everything moving was grit. Even in the face of financial strain, broken gear, harsh criticism, and exhausting recoveries, Matt pressed on. The struggles were heavy, but they shaped the story that millions came to follow. Despite all these struggles, it did not stop the betrayal that awaited him. The bitter wound of Matt's journey into the public. I was never just about engines, cables, or daring rescues. His name was becoming a household brand. His videos reaching audiences across the country and beyond. But as his reputation grew, so did the attention of those standing closest to him. And in the shadows of that success lay a painful truth. The deepest threat he would face would not come from a rival, business, or a distant critic, but from someone inside his circle. This man, whom we will call KC, was not an outsider looking in. He had been present through the climb, watching every milestone and setback unfold. KC was not just an employee or a casual acquaintance. He was someone Matt considered a friend. Someone woven tightly into the daily workings of the company. He had seen the YouTube channel blossom, understood the mechanics of how recoveries were filmed, edited, and shared, and knew the intricate details of how things operated behind the scenes. That closeness made what followed sting far more than any legal penalty ever could. As the channel's popularity exploded, the friendship began to show cracks. KC, according to Matt's account, started to see the spotlight as something he deserved for himself. The attention, the recognition, the financial gains. He wanted more. He reportedly believed the audience tuned in for him, and that his presence alone justified a greater share of the channel's income. Dissatisfaction hardened into demand, and soon KC was pushing for an enormous cut of the revenue, nearly half of all earnings. What made this storm even more crushing was its timing. Matt was already under immense stress from an ongoing investigation into his business practices. The weight of legal scrutiny pressed on him daily, his reputation and livelihood hanging in the balance. It was at this most fragile moment that KC allegedly chose to act. What unfolded next, by Matt's telling, was nothing less than blackmail. The ultimatum was chilling. KC wanted a huge payout, a sum of $40,000, and the condition was simple: pay up or face exposure. KC threatened to reveal private knowledge of Matt's operations, the very kind of information being examined in the legal case, that it was not a hollow bluff either. Steps were taken to increase the pressure. Legal letters arrived ordering Matt to strip KC, his associates, and even members of Matt's family from the videos unless the money was delivered. The betrayal cut deeper when KC, armed with intimate knowledge of the business, allegedly used that information to make Matt's situation with the authorities more complicated. Every vulnerability, every crack in the Foundation was pressed hard. It felt calculated, designed to cause maximum damage at the very moment Matt was fighting to keep his company alive. For many, the legal issues themselves would have been the most unbearable weight. Probation, fines, the endless stress of lawyers and courtrooms. But for Matt, the most devastating blow was realizing that a trusted companion had turned against him. He could withstand the accusations. He could shoulder the penalties. But what pierced through everything was the knowledge that betrayal had come from a man he once called a friend. Amidst all of these, there was an even bigger challenge, one that threatened to put an end to everything he built for years. The rescue that cost him a VATS channel has long been a favorite on YouTube. Viewers came back again and again, drawn not just to the rescues, but to his friendly nature. He seemed like the kind of person who could turn even the hardest job into an adventure. Families on vacation who found themselves buried in sand or trapped in rocks often ended their stories smiling. Thanks to Matt. To his audience, he was not only a rescuer of vehicles, but someone who gave people relief in moments of panic. But in the year 2021, the image of that smiling hero collided with something very different. Matt was suddenly facing criminal charges in the state of Utah. The man admired for saving others was now himself under the weight of a felony accusation. It was shocking news for his supporters, who had only ever seen him as a figure of generosity and goodwill. The case against him was serious. A felony charge can end with time in prison, and it has the power to stain a person's name permanently. For someone whose entire career rested on trust and reputation, it was devastating. To understand what happened, you have to look back before the cameras and the subscribers. Long before YouTube fame, Matt operated a normal towing company called Winder Towing. Through that company, he had a contract with the American Automobile Association. This arrangement worked smoothly for ordinary breakdowns, dead batteries, flat tires, and cars that simply needed to be hauled from one spot to another. But Matt's specialty was never the ordinary. His true calling was the impossible rescues out in deserts, dunes, and rocky trails. The trouble began because these demanding recoveries were nothing like a simple roadside tow. They involved specialized gear, multiple vehicles, and hours of dangerous labor. The standard insurance forms never accounted for that kind of operation. Prosecutors argued that Matt's company submitted claims for jobs that did not qualify under the contract. They pointed to more than $15,000 billed in ways the association would not have approved. From their perspective, it was deliberate dishonesty. They believed he knowingly used customer membership details to get reimbursements that should not have been paid. Matt's view, however, was entirely different. He believed that every dollar claimed matched real work done in real situations. He was rescuing stranded people, protecting their trips from disaster, and preventing them from being crushed with massive surprise bills. If the company refused to reimburse those rescues, the customers would have been left paying thousands of dollars themselves. He saw his actions not as deception but as compassion, bending rigid rules to shield ordinary families from financial ruin. Still, the law does not always Bend for compassion. With the felony charge hanging over him, Matt was left facing a trial that could drain his savings and damage everything he had built. After months of stress, he accepted a deal in the year 2022. He did not admit guilt, but he agreed not to contest the charge. The felony was reduced to a misdemeanor, but there were still consequences to bear. He was ordered to serve 18 months of probation, repay the $15,328 in question, and cover an additional fine to the state. The headline spread quickly. Some people read them and concluded that Matt was dishonest. Others defended him, convinced that he had only tried to do right by his customers. Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more updates just like this.